Hello, everyone. Tonight I'm very excited to be rolling with Jeff, with Jeff Dolan. Sorry, you said it. I love that, so I had to bring it in somewhere. So Jeff is a multifaceted individual who's been navigating the intricate dance between art and business. From his early days in corporate healthcare software as a service sales to becoming the CEO of a blossoming software as a service startup, Wavve, Jeff's journey is nothing short of inspiring. With a heart that beats for art, design, music and film, and a mind that's sharp for business, he's always been in pursuit of striking that perfect balance. After witnessing the huge shift in buying decisions and realizing the undeniable power of digital marketing and social media, Jeff took the plunge and started his own marketing agency in 2018. And the results, well, they speak for themselves, with one of his clients, in this case, tripling their revenue when they started with Jeff. So that's pretty awesome. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into his story and insight. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Great to be here, Nicholas.
Now, where in the world are you based, Jeff?
I'm on the coast of North Carolina, so Wilmington.
On the coast. Okay. I didn't know Carolina had a coast, but that's how bad my American geography is. So
That's funny. Yeah, it's one of the southern states. It's the easternmost state that sticks out into the Atlantic.
okay, I always thought Carolina was somewhere in the middle, surrounded by deserts and jungles, but that's again. So Jeff, super cool having you with us. Let's start out with an easy one. Considering your background in both art and business, how do you see the role of social media evolving in this new digital, with all of these new digital platforms that we've got about, and especially for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean it's the place to be, right? It's where all the eyeballs are. Everyone's on their phone. Used to be everyone was reading magazines or newspapers, and now it's just all on your phone, and everyone is there 24/7 scrolling. I think the last stat I heard was something crazy like the average person spends 4 hours on their phone every day or something. So I mean, social media is where the attention is, and that's where we need to be as entrepreneurs and leaders and creators. And so, to the extent that you can tell a story in that format, will be the extent of your success.
You talk about storytelling. I think that's an art that people forget is involved in social media. They wonder, how does something go viral? Why did this post do better than that post? And using technology is not going to solve all your problems. So understanding how to use Facebook, understanding how to use Pinterest and TikTok and all of these platforms is great, but anyone can really figure out after half an hour of reading a manual how to work these things. The storytelling is what is going to change customers' perceptions and get somebody inspired, motivated, and involved in your brand. Talk to me a bit about your storytelling process, because I've had a look at your YouTube channel, and you've got some really cool videos and that going on there. So talk to me about storytelling.
Yeah, it's really what people are most interested in, right? So if I'm scrolling on social media, I'm looking for, depending on the mode that I'm in or that someone is in when they're scrolling, they want something entertaining, they want something interesting, they want that curiosity piqued. And so when you're thinking about storytelling, you really on social media have to think about like what is the hook? What is the thing that's going to get somebody to just stop and pay attention to you for a split second? I think you only have like 1 second to grab somebody. And if you've ever been at the airport or somewhere watching people scroll on their phone, literally they'll just scroll. I mean, sub-second
Yeah.
attention. I mean, it's like, wait, you didn't even see what was there. They're making like sub-second decisions based on the visual that they're seeing, right? And so it's not even a video at that point. It's just static images. They're making a judgment on, is this interesting? Is this interesting? Is this what I'm looking for? And so the first part of storytelling on socials is the hook. What is the thing that you are going to grab somebody's attention on that is going to get them to pause for a second? Then you have to deliver the headline or the offer. Like, what are you about to unveil or tell them about? You can use curiosity, you can use conflict, you can use a bunch of different things that draw them into why they need to stay there. For businesses, it's usually some sort of value proposition, right? Like, I'm going to teach you this, or I'm going to share with you about this. So you're kind of inviting them into something that you're going to talk about. Then you deliver the message, and then you kind of wrap up with a call to action or next step. That's traditionally just the generic format of how you want to start creating content. But I think the bigger story arcs are important too, right? So if you think about it like a TV show, like an episodic, where it's like, each episode is its own little story, and you could watch it at any moment. You can jump in at any episode of that TV show and you can say, I'm going to watch this and it's going to make sense. But if you watch it over a period of time, you're going to start to learn the backstories of all the characters. You're going to start to learn that there's these longer stories that are multi-episodes long. And that's where you start drawing people into the bigger story, right? So if you're a personality and you're interesting, and I don't know, let's say surfing, right? And I start to watch your surfing videos, and then I start to see that, oh man, you're in a surf competition. Oh wow, you won a surf competition. Oh wow, you are repping this kind of brand or this sort of surfboard. Maybe I should consider that. Oh wow, now you're talking about fishing. Oh wow, you also just got married. Oh, you have a kid now, right? And so, oh wow, now you have a Netflix documentary. It's like, what? And so the story gets deeper and you get to know the person more and all the facets of them as a person. Now you're invested, and now you lean in and care about what they're selling or what they're talking about.
I love those analogies that you've given there, and especially the going into like a Simpsons program, and if you had to watch Simpsons for the first time, you'd figure out what's going on in that show, but not know the backstories. And that also ties into really understanding your customer. You're going to have more than two types of customers, but there's going to be that customer who wants to get involved, does want to be loyal, is excited about what you're doing, and really wants to delve deeper into that brand or personality. And then you've got those transactional customers who are just looking, just give me the information I want, don't give me all this other crap. I just give me what I need. And you've got to deliver to those two different markets. That's really tough.
Yeah, and I think you don't need to try to create content for the people that are transactional, right? You can do a straight sales, and I think if you look at traditional marketing, there's those levels of awareness, right? And so some people are going to not even know they have a problem, and you're introducing them to like, hey, did you know that you had this problem? And they're like, whoa, I had no idea. They don't have any awareness yet of a solution in the market, that you're a solution, why your solution is better, right? They're just out there and so those are like top of the funnel people that you're just creating. That kind of content is very kind of generic, specific, not specific. But then as you get down that awareness funnel, you're going to start speaking directly to their problem, to you as why you're the solution, what is the solution, why you're the solution, and where they need to go to buy the solution, right? And so that's where your storytelling can kind of hit those different points. But if somebody's just coming in and they're just like, I want the answer to whatever, guess what? AI is going to solve that for them, and they're not even going to see your website or your content or whatever, your blog or whatever, right? They're just going to give them an answer. And so if you go now into search engines and you type in something, a lot of times an AI at the top is just going to summarize it and give them the quick answer. And I think that's where the transactional people are going to live. But what we're really looking for is developing a relationship and telling a story and drawing people into, the bigger narrative of what you're doing.
It's interesting you bring up websites and how people are not going to go to websites. What I've seen is that there obviously is still a role for a website, but it's more like a data repository. You've got to have all your SEO, all your keywords, all of your items that you're selling. Tons and tons and tons of data needs to be sitting in the back end on your website, because it's going to be accessed from a whole bunch of different places. Your social media, Pinterest, Google Images, your YouTube searches, Google Business, etc. So websites are still going to be valuable, but that algorithm, we need to be able to feed that AI bot or that algorithm the right information and make sure that our website is the one that is taking that data, taking that data from. And I think that's where websites still have a little bit of value.
Yeah, it is changing. It is controversial. It used to be that the website was your hub, right? And that's where people would start, and then they would find out what social media you were on or where you were selling things, and they would jump off from there. Now it's flipped. Now you have an on-ramp on socials, and whatever social platform they're on, if you're on there in the right way and your branding and everything and your storytelling is on point, they can get hooked in on that one on-ramp, and then they go to your bio or wherever there's a link, right? Different platforms have different ways of getting you off platform, and a lot of them don't want you to go off platform. But once you click that link, then it's like, I'm going to this website to do a specific thing. That's why companies like ClickFunnels blew up, right? Because they realized, wait a minute, if I'm jumping off social media to do something from a call to action, I want to just do that one thing. And I want to get that one thing done on a website. I don't want to go to the website and it's like the Walmart billboard, race car, NASCAR, like every logo in the book. And I'm like sitting there trying to figure out like, what am I going to buy? I need to know exactly when I click that link that it's going to get me to what I want. And I think that's the key to websites now is just getting people exactly to what they want.
Absolutely. Now, I want to step back a little bit and go a little bit more into who's Jeff. Now, in the introduction, I spoke about this intersection between art and business. Give me a little bit about your art background and or your creative background and how you've blended that into Wavve.
Yeah, so I've always grown up being the kid that does art and draws. And so as I grew up, that moved to the computer and I started doing, I think I was one of the first like Photoshop users when it came out. I literally think I can remember the first version like appearing on Photoshop where it was like Photoshop version 3. And I was like, oh my goodness, version 3. That's amazing.
With 5 buttons on the left, basically.
Right. And I used it to win a state graphic design contest. And it was really cool, messing around with all the features and showing what it could do. And that's when I really made the decision like, okay, I'm a digital artist, not just a hand, painter or something. And so when I made that shift, the next big revolution that was happening was the web, right? And it was like, you got to design. I want to be a part of this, right? So I learned how to design websites. And I was one of the first web designers in my town to design for businesses. And so very early on, I made the switch of like, okay, I have to make money at this art because everyone is telling me that if I just become a painter, I'm going to be poor. And so I think that was like, one of the reasons why I was like, okay, well, whatever's trending, like I want to be a part of that and I need to figure out how to infuse art into it. And so that was a really cool thing. But then obviously with all the technology, what it constantly does is give you more and more ways to do it without humans. And so they got the engines that create it. WordPress came out and it was like, you don't have to type up all the back-end database management. You can just do it, through WordPress. And so there was a lot of things like that where it was taking out parts of it. And even today, I mean, there's website builders now that just do it all for you. And the AIs now are just like, oh, you want a website like that? Bam, here you go. And so and even artists, I mean, music artists, I mean, it's taking a lot of the art out of it from a humanity standpoint, right? You've got The Weeknd and Jay-Z having a hit song come out that was made purely on AI, and now they're forced to play that song at their concerts, but they never wrote it. Which is hilarious to me. That your fans can be like, play that one song, and you're like, that was an AI of me and I didn't write it, but okay. Imagine having to learn a song that you sang, but you didn't write it and you didn't sing it and you didn't release it.
Well, the whole AI environment now, I think there are obviously those folks who are pro and against, and I think a lot of creative folks are like, screw these guys, screw AI. But at the end of the day, art has become commoditized over the last few years anyway. If we just look at Pinterest, not Pinterest, if we look at Instagram. So Instagram, when it first came out, a lot of the professional photographers are like, man, look at all these bozos putting their photos on here, they're terrible. And what's happened over the years is that as phones have gotten better, as people's tastes have improved through seeing what is good photography and what's bad photography, Instagram has actually had a very beneficial effect on, I think, the arts industry, because people can spot what is trash and what is good. And at the end of the day, we don't need everyone in the world to be an artist. We need the best of the crop to float to the top. It's not pleasant, obviously, for artists. And I had another very interesting chat with a music promoter where he said it costs about $5 to $10 million to create a concert pianist or a conductor, because there are only a certain amount of jobs out there. And if you want to get one of those top jobs, you've got to spend big money and promote yourself.
Wow.
Now, this comes into how this impacts on your business, or how your business came about, because being able to build your brand, to be able to generate content as a small business or individual, etc., that's tough going. It's really tough to churn out hundreds of tweets and that in order to stand out from the masses. So maybe this gives us a good segue into what is Wavve.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I have a really interesting way of coming to Wavve. So I didn't actually found the company. It was founded by three founders from South Carolina back in 2016. And they were solving different needs based on audio and radio. And they kind of stumbled into Wavve as a solution for podcasters because there wasn't really an easy way to get a podcast onto social media. And there wasn't a lot of attention on the market at that time as far as socials. And so if you wanted to share an MP3 on, say, Instagram, it was like, what do? I need to put a visual with it. I need it to animate or do something because I don't have any visuals because it's just audio. And so that's kind of how it started. And then from there, they built it up. And then pretty much at the height of the interest in COVID, when everybody's at home and they were like, I'm going to be a podcaster. I might as well because I'm sitting around doing nothing. So that Wavve was acquired by Calm Capital. And those are some private equity guys that are good friends of mine. And they saw what I did in my marketing, my social media marketing firm and digital marketing. And they said, hey, can you do that for Wavve? And so they put me in as CEO, and the rest is history. But I knew that I personally wanted to continue to infuse my art and business, right? So I wanted something that was creative, and so the Calm guys really found that company in Wavve, right? It was something that was creative and interesting, and I think you mentioned this earlier, like, it's a very competitive space, right? There's a lot of companies now that, especially SaaS companies, that are like, hey, we'll help you create, media for social media, or repurpose your content or transcribe it, right? And so our approach in the market is really to make it simple for creators to turn their audio into video and text, right? And so super, super simple. Like you have your podcast, you have your speech, you talk into your phone, you have an audio memo. How do you get that online in the fastest possible way? And that's what Wavve does. And so we want to keep it simple, and we want to make it to where you don't feel that dread as a creator of like, oh my gosh, I have to learn how to edit. I have to learn how to post. I need to learn like all this crazy hashtags or whatever your strategy is. Let's just simplify it down. And it's funny because we have creators now that they've even skipped the complexity of hosting their podcast, right? They don't even make that decision. They're just like, I'm going to create a little audiogram and put that on socials. And if that catches on, I'll worry about all the other stuff. So they're actually using it to rapidly test without even editing video, right? So I think a lot of us, we're complicating it a lot, right? We'll record, a video like this, a conversation, and then the creator's like, all right, I got this hour-long podcast, this video, and I've got two different audio tracks, and I got all this stuff, and then you're leaning in and like, okay, is Riverside going to help me? Is YouTube going to help me? Who's going to help me edit this thing? And so it's overwhelm, right? You got a lot of moving parts. And so what we're trying to do is say, hey, look, load a picture, load your audio, we'll give you the video, post that to wherever you want, you're done. Make that a habit and get in the habit of just publishing, shipping, right? Because as a creator, I think that's the hardest part, is like getting over that initial like resistance of, I'm just going to post every day. I'm going to try to do that. I have to come up with the idea, say the thing, record the thing, edit the thing, publish the thing, right? And if I can get in that mode, then at that point, it's just, how do I master it? How do I get better at it? How do I improve it? But unless you start that wheel moving, you can't move a parked car. You're just going to sit there and talk to death about it and plan. And one day I will eventually have a podcast or a YouTube channel or do something. Or one day when I mastermind my entire marketing strategy, I'll maybe do it.
So you've just worked out a really nice marketing campaign there for yourself as well. Is not just do it, but if you've got that podcast idea, 1, 2, 3, there it's out in the market. And your point about repetition or doing it a couple of times, you can't do one podcast. It's not like writing a novel. Obviously, this 1 hour chat is not novel quality yet, I hope. After a bit of editing and fine tuning, maybe. But with podcasts, it's building up an audience. It's building up people knowing the sound of your voice, what the episode sort of structure is. And that only happens after quite a few episodes. I mean, if you're talking about the stress and strains of just getting started, it's taken me 5 years to start my podcast. So
right.
I eventually started, and now I do between 2 and 3 launches a week, or 3 episodes a
Good
week.
for you.
So, but the
Awesome.
reason I've got so little hair is because I do 2 to 3 episodes a week. So I totally get those complications. And there's so many platforms. There's Riverside, there's Descript, there's what's the other one? A whole bunch of them. And I think again, what Wavve does is let you get to market quickly and simply. And it's maybe a starter step for folks getting into podcasts. It might not be Joe Rogan, won't necessarily be using it just yet, but it'll get you on the road to being a podcaster. So I love that. So at least I now see what your niche is, which is really cool.
And we even have folks like Oprah and ESPN, and I mean, we have big brands that use Wavve as well, but it's for content that maybe was on the radio, or they didn't have a visual with it, or they wanted, instead of a selfie, kind of shaky video or whatever, they wanted a professional photo with it that was taken in a nice studio with a nice background, nice graphic design, right? That's on brand. And so there's a lot of, especially with the bigger brands, there's a lot of production value that goes into on-screen content. And so if you can't produce that at all levels of your organization, it's nice to be able to just put a professional graphic design image with some audio, because you can raise your level of production without the cost, right? And the speed as well.
Now, you just threw Oprah in there, so you're going to have to tell me, what did your team say, or what was the expression in the office when they heard Oprah has used Wavve to put out a post?
I mean, we're excited. I mean, it's always fun to see recognized names that use us. And I think, as controversial as some of the people that use our platform, that I probably shouldn't name, I mean, there's all sorts of people that use it, and we are neutral, right? Like, so we don't really try to tout it or like, hey, come use us, because plus, good luck trying to get a hold of them to get permission.
Yeah.
We've tried it many times. It's like we reach out, it's like, thank you so much, and it's like crickets. Like, well, we hope you like it. Yeah. We're here.
So
we're here to help.
Exactly. Can I ask, in terms of subscribers, what, from before you started to when you took over the reins as CEO at Wavve, how has that trajectory been? Has it been tough? And what are the sort of milestones you've got set for yourself? What is the size of this market? That's a whole bunch of questions. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So we've grown to several hundred thousand on our platform. It's definitely grown since I've started, but what we've run into that has been really challenging is obviously AI has come out. And so the question is do you jump on the bandwagon immediately in version 1? Do you let it mature? Do you kind of sit back and kind of play the Apple model where, they weren't the first to market, BlackBerry beat them, but when they did come to market, they dominated, right? So it's like, what's the strategy? We are a small, very small company. Only a handful of people work at Wavve, so it's not like we're this big company. And so we have to choose our battles wisely. And I think what that means is we have to be very careful with what features we're going to build, what the roadmap looks like. Are we serving our current customers? And so two big things happened in the last year. AI came out and everybody moved to video, right? And so while we create video, the inputs are changing, right? So people are now having this kind of conversation as a podcast or filming it live, and they're bringing video with their audio, whereas traditionally podcasts have been audio, right? And so we're seeing that trend happening, which means that we have to look at video as on the roadmap now. And so we're actively looking at different solutions that still keep it really simple to edit. So I think that's the challenge, is like, how do you make something complex simple? And so we're always listening to our customers on, okay, AI's out, you can do all these things, but like, what do you really need? What's going to help you do this faster and easier? What's going to eliminate the overwhelm? Because we have customers, including myself, where I use Adobe Premiere. I love Adobe products, right? But you still use Wavve because you don't want to log into Premiere or all the complex editors, because you're like, it's too much buttons, too many things happening, right? And it's why companies like Descript, they have to make a desktop application. When you're getting really heavy into video, it's like, oh, Loom, you got to download the actual app. It can't all be in the browser. And Wavve is all in the browser. So we don't want to get that to that next level of complexity for many reasons, right? For growing and keeping it simple for ourselves. But to reduce that overwhelm, constantly trying to innovate on, like, how do you make something super simple? And it's funny, one of the things that I thought I was on the cutting edge of this, and then Descript came out with it, but we were developing select text to edit. So how you select the text instead of the waveform to pick what you're going to edit. Yeah. We were working on that years ago and we were like, man, this is going to be the future. And we just couldn't get it out. And then Descript came out with it, and it was like, well, they have more programming power than we do. So good for them. But it ended up being an industry standard way of doing it. And so that's something that we're working on. But I think the real, thing that we're looking at is, how do we stay relevant for our customers, right? And how do we simplify the stack of tools that they're working with? So we're not for everybody. We are the simple solution, and we understand that there's a lot of tools that can do similar things. And so we're looking at, what are the things that can keep it simple, but what are some things that might, excite our customers? And really it comes down to, the offer that we're giving them, right? And so we're toying with a lot of ideas right now, as well as I'm sure a lot of SaaS companies are, because like I said, the AI engines are at the door. If you look at the saying, what was the saying in the past? It was, software is going to eat the world. Have you ever heard that?
No, but I believe it.
So software eats everything is basically some, I forget who said it, but basically it meant that there's a software program you could write that solves whatever you need, right? And it's going to infuse itself in everything. Well, I think the next quote is going to be, AI eats software.
Yeah.
Because if you can get an AI to just write the software for you, I was listening to a podcast the other day where they literally have invented AIs that create machinery in VR space. So these are using the physical mechanics of metal and gears and mechanics and physics in a virtual space, all in the metaverse, but they're using AI to build that machinery and test it and then iterate on it and say, oh, this little component fails after 4,000 times of use. What?
No, there's absolutely ridiculous stuff coming out in AI, and I don't think we've really scratched the surface. We're basically just tinkering on the edge of we've smoothed the rock a little bit. Now we've got to chip away and make Michelangelo's David. So I mean, there's so much happening in that space. But when we look at Wavve, and it's very interesting, you talk about not wanting to just shoehorn everything into the product just because it's out there. And so if I look at your brand, another SaaS service that I think is a good, what's the word? Another good example to look at would be Canva. And it's exactly that. When Canva came out, they only did a few basic things. And using Photoshop, using InDesign and these, it's a pain in the butt, and you've got to know exactly where all of those buttons are and which, and the workflow is super slow. And now, and everyone went, oh, boo, if you're using Canva, you're obviously not a designer. Everyone uses Canva now.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Now it is just such a powerful platform because it simplified things it went back to Photoshop version 3, where you only had 6 things that you could do. There was a paintbrush, eraser, marquee tool, and that's it.
Right.
And that's that's what Canva did. And because that's what 99% of the market needs, that 1% who have actually read the manual and know how to do overlays, know how to do all of these fancy things, will use that. So it's absolutely understanding your market. And it's funny you talk about Descript. I use Descript. I love it because I like going deeper into these technologies. And they had a very good marketing campaign when they said, look, we were a bit late in the game on AI because, as you were saying, we want to make sure that everyone else gets the bugs out the system and we give you something real good. And they haven't brought out everything under the sun, and it really works. So they've brought in some new AI functionality. One of the big bugbears for me was copying and pasting my transcript, sticking only 2,500 words into ChatGPT, waiting for that then putting in the next 2,500 words, and then it did it in a different format, and I was pulling out my hair. Now it does it auto. It takes my entire 1-hour discussion with somebody and presses it into short bits and pieces. So it's a bit more complicated, but it's one level less complicated than going into Premiere Pro, which I also like. But unless you're a pro and spend hours and hours and hours and hours on it, I just need to cut out certain words, put in an intro and an outro, and I'm done. So yeah, it's the industry is just moving so fast. And if I can ask another question on Wavve, how do you keep your customers happy? How do you, every month, with there are new competitors coming out, when there are new, potentially companies who are adding all of these AI things that you don't have yet, how are you keeping your customers happy? How are you communicating to them?
Yeah, so one of the ways that I do it as a CEO is I actually help run support now and then, right? So I'll actually jump in occasionally into support and do tickets. And if I see new sales come in from somebody I recognize, I'll reach out and say hello, maybe even call them. And, I think that has really given me a good pulse on what's happening. We also have exit interviews on cancellations. So when people cancel, we know why they canceled, what category it's in, if they went to a competitor or just chose a different path. We know what those trends are. And so we can quickly see the trend happening before it even is a public trend, right? Like we knew people were saying, hey, I'm recording it on Zoom. What do I do with my Zoom video? Right? So we kind of knew, and it's interesting, Riverside actually, which is what we're using right now, great company, and they really started executing on some of these clip trends, right? Like, okay, we know you want to clip it, we know you want to do this. So if you have video, it's like, hey, they're making it easier. So it is interesting to see what those trends are, and as customers have issues, or hey, I really am trying to do this. But I mean, it's funny how wide the customer base could be. When you have a simple solution, it widens it out, the capabilities, right? I think the more features you have, the more narrow the customer is, the segment. So for instance, we had somebody last year that he needed a video for his mom's funeral, and so he recorded it on his phone, and he had a nice picture, and he needed it to play for everybody because he was too choked up to say what he needed to say. And so he used Wavve to create the video, and he played it successfully at his mom's funeral, and it went over really well. And so to be able to help him to figure out the app within a matter of minutes and get that done, having never touched any kind of social media tool ever, right? Was such a pleasure to be able to do. And then you have that person, and then you have this super, sophisticated person that knows After Effects, and they're an animator, and they're like, I want the waveform going when I'm talking, right? It's a cool visual when I'm scrolling to stop the scroll, and I don't want to do it in After Effects. It takes too long. So he uses Wavve, right? So I think there's a wide gamut of different use cases and why people use it. And so it's just a matter of really listening for what our customers want, and understanding that when people leave, we get it. We can't move as fast to retain everyone, right?
Yeah, I think you've made some super interesting points there, and I love the talking about with your type of product. You've got such a wide variety of potential use cases. So not typically the use cases you would think about. I mean, I'm sure you never thought Wavve would be used for a funeral service. But from an emotional perspective and from a user perspective, they will figure out ways to use your product like that you wouldn't have. So that will be where your next innovation and where your next story and social media, etc., comes on. And I love that you are getting involved in the tickets, because I've written lots of tickets in my life, lots and lots and lots. And the companies that respond quickly and with empathy, so not just, yeah, well, we'll get back to you when we can, keep my business. And that's what happened with Riverside. I had a bad experience, and I said, and they responded, and they helped sort my problems out, and I will stay with them because they said, hey man, we know you're having a tough time. Let's see what we can do, and we'll get back to you. And the customer care was really good. So that you're taking customer care and actually reading the responses. There's a reason you send out those emails saying how, when you unsubscribe, why. It's companies who take that seriously get serious value out of that, and it's not just a tick box. Okay, well, you can get some great info out of that. Now, Jeff, there were a whole bunch of other questions I wanted to ask, but I'm going to ask one or two last ones. How do you keep your energy up in the tech industry, in this kind of business where everyone is nipping at your heels? And I'm sure your shareholders are also saying those are rookie numbers. Let's get up to 1 million, 2 million, 2 million downloads. How do you keep yourself motivated when you've had a tough time? And some coping techniques of being a CEO, because that's not it's a tough there at the top.
I love it. No, that's a great question. So I think for me, I've realized that there are temptations to shortcut everything, right? You want the latest secret, you want the shortest route, you want the super secret, morning routine. But when it comes down to it, what keeps my energy high is making room for taking care of my body, taking care of my sleep, taking care of my relationships, taking care of my work, and having a set time block for those things where I can just go into the mode. And I find that when I have the time to calmly go through my day in the right order of events that I've planned out, it's a much better day. And I can manage my stress. I can be happy. I can have energy. Whereas if I try to shortcut something and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to get this done. And then I'm going to go do, oh, I got to answer this. Oh, and then you're interrupted. Now you're on someone else's schedule and your day gets all out of whack. And then your wife or your friend or your kid or your boss or somebody, inserts their will. And then all of a sudden you're just stressed out and you have a horrible day and your energy gets sucked out. And so I think my advice would be to just time block out your ideal day. What does your ideal day look like? And are you excited about that? And if you can execute on that ideal day and that excites you, then that'll give you energy. And it has for me.
So don't let other people make you run on their schedules. I love that. I really love that. Jeff, is there anything about you that we'd be surprised to know other than being a surfer and an award-winning graphic designer and web designer?
In college, I signed up for karate and I got a UFC fighter as a teacher. And I became the guinea pig. So the guy that he taught the whole class on was me.
Oh dear.
And so I got pretty good. And it was funny because the very first day I was like the cocky, young, I came out of wrestling in high school. And so the guy was actually, I'm 6'2", so he was a little bit shorter than me. And I was like, I could take this guy. And I didn't. And at the time, you got to remember that I'm kind of old, but UFC was not really a thing, right? It was not on the public awareness spectrum at all. It was kind of like underground. And so, I didn't really have any concept of what the moves were or some of the mixed martial arts stuff. And man, the very first move, I did my signature wrestling move that I did, in tournaments and stuff. He guillotined me immediately. And I was like, what is this? And I didn't even know that you're supposed to tap out. So he's literally choking me to death. And I'm just sitting there like not even knowing what to do. So anyway, my learning curve in MMA was pretty steep, but yeah.
I suppose in North Carolina or South Carolina, I think MMA must have quite some good hunting grounds there. I think I've seen some. It's a great concept where it is like not redneck MMA, but it's out in the sticks where people are going, real and bare knuckle fighting and that, and it's one of my favorite. It was one of my favorite YouTube channels. They had these random characters, so it's definitely something folks need to look at. But I'm glad you've got all of your teeth and that you did tap out. So
right.
Jeff, thanks so much for sharing part of your journey and some of these insights with us. Now, listeners, if you're interested in generating video content from your audio podcast for social media, head over to wavve.co.
That's WAVVE.co.
And guess what? If you create a free account and mention that we sent you, the fantastic team at Wavve will offer you a special discount on any paid plan you choose. So just make sure you say Nicholas sent you or Wunderbrand sent you. It doesn't really matter. I don't get paid for it, but check it out. I'm sure it's very interesting. Now, Jeff, where can folks get in touch with you? I've given the details for Wavve, but how can folks, if they want to get in touch with you or follow your journey, where can they contact you?
Yeah, so we're on all the socials as Wavve, and then my personal thoughts and art is at jeffdolan.com.
Groovy. Well, Jeff, thanks so much, and hope you don't get in a headlock or a camel clutch anytime soon.
Thanks, Nicholas. It was a pleasure.
Come chat with Nicholas. He'll listen to you. Then he'll laugh, and then he'll cry with you. It's all in a safe space for you to speak your truth. Oh.